Pause the video now and read over these 5 steps, please. The 2 major things you need to read are step 4 and step 5. Once we get a common denominator, all we have to do is pay attention to the numerator. We always need to make sure we check our answers. And when there's 2 expressions set even to each other, all we have to do is solve it like a proportion, cross multiply and divide. Step 5 is the most important. We always need to check to make sure it works. We can't have the denominator equal 0. So we need a nice simple one to start off with. Let's make a common denominator. 4, 8, and 12 all are going to go into 24. So I'm going to multiply the 3 by 6. I'm going to multiply the 5 by 3 and the x by 2. Now, they're all going to have a common denominator. So we can now ignore the denominators. That was step 4 on how to do this. And just have the equation 18 plus 15 equals 2x. So we're going to combine like terms, and we get 33 equals 2x. So x is going to equal 16 1/2. Since there's no x in the denominator, there's nothing we need to check. There is nothing wrong with that answer. All right, these are easy too. Because they are set up like proportions, all we have to do is cross multiply. So I'm going to take x times 1 is x, and then 1 times 6 minus x, 6 minus x. Solve this just like we've been doing all year long. I'm going to add x to both sides. I get 2x equals 6. Divide by 2. X equals 3. Here's the thing though. Let's check and see. Does 3 work as an answer? It does, because it will not make a 0 in the denominator. You get 1/3, and then you get 6 minus 3, which is 1/3 as well. Same thing on the next one. You have a proportion again. So let's cross multiply. 1 times x is x, and then 2 times x plus 1 is 2 times x plus 1. You need to rainbow the 2 to both sides. So we have x equals 2x plus 2. I'm going to subtract 2x to both sides. So I'm going to have negative x equals 2. So therefore, x equals negative 2. Need to check it in the denominator again. If I plug in negative 2, will I get a 0 in the denominator? No, I won't. One time I'll get a 2, and the other time I'll get a negative 1. So therefore, that answer works. All right, the next two are going to be more complicated. They're not going to be proportions. So we're going to make a common denominator of x. So I'm going to multiply the x and the 3 both by x. Now, since we're doing an equation and not a proportion, we're only going to deal with the numerator now. You don't have to worry about the denominators. So we have x squared plus 2 equals 3x. The denominators are completely out of the problem. Forget about it. Now, set this equal to 0. So we're going to do x squared minus 3x plus 2 equals 0, and you need to factor this. By now you all know how to factor this, that it's x minus 2 and x minus 1. Don't be sloppy. Make sure you write them both equal to 0. So x minus 2 equals 0 and x minus 1 equals 0. So x is going to equal 2 and x is going to equal 1. Now, let's check those in the original equation. Is it going to cause a problem to put a 2 or a 1 in the denominator? Nope, that's okay. It's only when the denominator equals 0. So they are both solutions. All right, again, the next one is more complicated. You need to factor the x squared minus 16 before we do anything. At this point, you should know that it's going to be factored as x plus 4, x minus 4. So that's going to be our common denominator. So the first fraction needs an x minus 4, and the second fraction needs an x plus 4. The third one by itself doesn't need anything at all. Now that we've made a common denominator, remember we're only looking at the numerators. We don't need to deal with the denominators anymore. So we're going to have x times x minus 4, and then we're going to have minus 4 times x plus 4, because this is a subtraction problem, equals x squared plus 16. Go on ahead and distribute everything out. Make sure you're distributing a negative 4, so it's negative 4x and negative 16. There's an x squared on both sides of the equation, so that cancels. So we get negative 8x. I'm going to add the 16 to the other side, equals 32. I divide by negative 8, and I get x equals negative 4. However, there's a problem. If we plug that back into the denominator, negative 4 plus 4 is going to equal 0. So therefore, negative 4 will not work as a solution. That's called the extraneous solution that we read about at the beginning. So there is no solution to this equation. Okay, this one's more difficult. Just like we did on Friday in class, you need to factor the y squared minus 4 first. So the common denominator is y plus 2y minus 2. So what is each fraction missing? The first one on the left is missing a y plus 2. The one in the middle isn't missing anything at all. And that one's missing a y minus 2. So I am now just going to set it up. I have 4 times y plus 2 minus that 2y minus 3. That all has to be in a parenthesis. And it's going to be equal to 5 times y minus 2. Going ahead, distribute all the way across. Combine like terms, you get 2y plus 11 equals 5y minus 10. I'm going to move the 2y to the other side of the equation. And I'm going to add the 10 to the other side. So we get 3y equals 21, so y equals 7. We need to check that in the original equation. 7 minus 2, that's okay. 7 squared minus 4, that's okay. And 7 plus 2, all okay. So 7 is an answer. Pause the video before the next problem starts and try to factor the denominators by yourselves. So as you can see, after I factored it, my common denominator is going to be 2a minus 1, 4a plus 1, and a plus 3. So the first fraction needs an a plus 3, the second one needs a 4a plus 1, and the last one needs a 2a minus 1. Go on ahead and pause the video and set up the equation. Here's how the equation should be set up. Go on ahead and multiply it out and start to simplify. Pause the video. Here's how I multiplied it out. I simplified it down to 2a squared minus 4a minus 16 equals 0. Pause the video and factor that. After I factored it, I got two answers, 4 and negative 2. And after I checked them, they both worked in the denominator.